Knowledge. We worship it, especially when it comes to money. Read more, learn more, understand the market, master the fundamentals, study the greats. And yet, the people who consume the most financial content often make worse investing decisions than the people who consume almost none of it. Not accidentally, not occasionally, systematically. This is not an opinion. It is what the research actually shows. To understand why, you have to understand something about confidence. When we learn about a subject, our confidence often rises faster than our competence. In most parts of life, that is harmless. In investing, it is not. Because in markets, the gap between confidence and competence is where expensive decisions get made. So here is the question almost nobody asks. What if reading about money does not make you a better investor? What if it mainly makes you a more confident one? And what if those two things are not the same, and in some conditions are direct opposites? In 2000, two finance professors at the University of California published a study that should have permanently changed how we think about investing. Barber and Terrance Odean analyzed the trading records of 66,465 American households. Real people, real brokerage accounts. 6 years of actual behavior. What they found was simple and devastating. Over the period they studied, the market returned 17.9% per year. The average household investor earned 16.4%. Already behind. But the real damage appeared in the investors who were most engaged, the ones trading most often, making the most decisions, acting most actively on what they believed they knew. That group earned 11.4% per year. The market, 17.9%. The most active investors, 11.4%. A 6.5 percentage point annual penalty. Not a penalty for ignorance, a penalty for involvement, for effort, for engagement, for acting more. Barber and Odean titled the paper, "Trading is Hazardous to Your Wealth." The title does not hide the conclusion. Now extend that gap over time. An investor earning 17.9% annually on $10,000 over 20 years ends up around $240,000. An investor earning 11.4% ends up around $83,000. That difference is not minor. It is roughly $157,000. Gone. If the most involved investors are doing the worst, what exactly is all that financial knowledge doing for them? Here is the uncomfortable answer. The most active traders are the most active because they believe they know what they are doing. They read the books. They follow the analysts. They study the earnings reports. They feel informed. And Barber and Odean used one word to explain what that information was producing. Overconfidence. Here is what that looks like in ordinary life. Imagine two people. Investor A and Investor B. Same age, same income, same starting capital, same access to markets. Investor A is the person personal finance culture tells you to admire. She reads the books. She subscribes to newsletters. She follows company earnings. She checks her portfolio regularly. Every few months, she adjusts something. Investor B does almost none of this. He buys a simple index fund, contributes automatically, ignores the noise, and leaves it alone. 20 years pass. Investor A has learned more. Read more, done more. Investor B has done less. Investor B has more money. This is not just a storytelling device. It is the pattern the research keeps finding. A 2011 review by Barber and Odean, pulling together evidence from multiple countries and datasets, found that individual investors who trade actively and concentrate in specific stocks systematically underperform passive strategies. Not occasionally, consistently. In Taiwan alone, the aggregate annual trading losses of individual investors amounted to approximately 3.8 percentage points below market returns, roughly 2.8% of the country's total personal income every year. And this problem is not limited to trading. In a 2004 study on retirement plan design, researchers found that when employers offered more investment options, fewer employees participated in the plan at all. Each additional 10 investment options was associated with a 2 percentage point drop in participation. More information, fewer good decisions. The knowledge did not create an edge. It created the feeling of having one. And in other cases, it created so much complexity that people stopped choosing at all. Over 20 years, both patterns are expensive. In 2014, Daniel Fernandes, John Lynch, and Richard Netemeyer published the most comprehensive analysis ever conducted of financial education's effect on real financial behavior. They analyzed 168 research papers, 201 individual studies, decades of accumulated evidence on what happens when people receive financial education and whether that changes what they actually do. Their conclusion was stark. Financial education interventions explain approximately 0.1% of the variance in downstream financial behavior. Not 10%, not 5%, not even 1%, 0.1%. And in randomized controlled trials, the strongest form of evidence, the effect was essentially zero. The study also found that even when financial education produced a short-term improvement, the effect decayed rapidly. For substantial programs of 24 hours or more, the behavioral effect was no longer statistically detectable after roughly 18 to 20 months. The knowledge fades, the confidence does not. That is the mechanism. The information leaves, but the self-image remains. I understand money. I am the kind of person who can make informed financial decisions. And people act on that self-image. Allgood and Wallstad in their research showed something similar in 2016 using data from 28,000 American adults. Perceived financial literacy, how financially capable people believe they are, was often as important as actual financial literacy in predicting financial behavior. Sometimes more important. So the problem is not that financial knowledge never matters. The problem is that identity outlasts information. And identity is what people act from. Think about a city map. You can study it for hours, memorize every street name, learn every turn, understand the structure better than most people who live there. But studying the map is not the same as driving through that city at rush hour in bad weather with a wrong turn behind you and a decision to make in the next 3 seconds. The map helps, but it also creates a risk. It can make you feel more prepared than you actually are. Financial knowledge is the map. The market is the territory. And markets do not reward you for mistaking one for the other. The people who study more do not always navigate better. Sometimes they simply move with more confidence in the wrong direction. In 2020, Balasubramanian and Sargent studied what they called inflated perceptions of financial literacy. People who score low on objective tests of financial knowledge but rate their own ability very highly. Their conclusion was blunt. Inflated perceptions of financial literacy may be more harmful than simply being financially illiterate. That makes intuitive sense. The person who knows they do not know is at least less likely to act with false precision. A 2025 study by Chatterjee, Singh and Nandan of 447 working-age adults found the same Dunning-Kruger pattern in financial literacy directly. The people who scored lowest on objective investing questions were among the most likely to rate themselves as highly competent. Only 9.6% answered all diversification questions correctly. Only 37.6% got all bond-related questions right. Yet many in the same sample described themselves as financially sophisticated. These are not reckless people. They are people who have encountered enough financial content to feel knowledgeable without encountering enough to understand the boundaries of what they know. They have built confidence, not calibration. And that combination, confidence without calibration, is what drives excessive trading, market timing, concentrated bets, and the 6.5 percentage point annual penalty, Barber and Odean documented. The most dangerous investor is not the one who knows nothing. It is the one who knows just enough to be certain. Here is what changes on Monday. Do not ask, do I know more about this investment than I did last week? Ask, is this knowledge changing my process or only increasing my urge to act? That is the real distinction the research points to. Reading about money is not the same as behaving better with it. Knowing the theory of compounding is not the same as having the temperament to let compounding happen. Understanding passive investing is not the same as resisting the temptation to interfere. So the practical rule is simple. Before every portfolio change, every trade, every new conviction, pause and ask one question. Is this decision coming from evidence or from the feeling of being informed? If you cannot answer that clearly, do nothing for 24 hours. That pause is not passivity. It is protection. Because the most expensive thing in investing is not ignorance. It is confidence that outruns competence.